Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Trevor, and I will be your stripper today. And today we are stripping down this 1967 Chevy Camaro. This Camaro appears to be in really good shape. There's not a lot of rust at all. Some surface rust, but nothing too crazy. We're gonna have a walk around real quick before we get it in the tank. And I know there's a lot of new people to my channel, so I'm gonna go a little more in depth on the steps of this process while we're doing it. That way everybody can understand what exactly is going on. But let's have a quick look at it before we get it in the tank. So up on the front here, the firewall looks really solid. We do have a little bit of surface rust, but nothing too crazy. And you can see this is actually where the worst of the rust is, from what we can see anyways. We always unveil some surprises. Have a look on the inside here. The floor is completely solid. Little specks of rust, but I don't see any rust holes coming through anywhere. Quarters look nice and straight. I'm going to assume that there is going to be some filler on this car. I might do some light sanding before we get it in the Alkaline, just to see what we're working with. The trunk, super solid. You can see we have a little bit of rust on the inside of that quarter panel. But everything looks pretty straight. The only damage I see is this dent on the passenger quarter. The rest of it looks good though. Now, I do have the doors, the trunk lid, and the hood for this car. And I already had them dipped. So the paint, I know, was pretty tough on those. And there was a skim coating all over the whole thing. So we'll see how this turns out. But I already got it all tied up. First step of the process, we're gonna put it in our Alkaline paint remover. It's Friday today. It's gonna remain in there all weekend, and we're gonna pull it out Monday, pressure wash it, and see what paint's left. Now, almost every car takes multiple dips. I'm gonna say this one's gonna take about 2 or 3 Alkaline dips to get all the paint, seam sealer, undercoating, filler, and everything off. And once this is all bare metal, we're gonna move over to our acid bath and take care of all this rust. Now with the rust, we use a food grade acid, so it does take a lot longer. It's probably gonna take about 3 or 4 dips for the rust. This one isn't too bad, so maybe not that much, but we will see once we get all this paint removed and see what's underneath everything. But I'm gonna get it in the tank, and I'll see you here in a little bit. So as you can see, it's going into the alkaline bath another time. Some of this paint was pretty stubborn and we needed to take care of the rest of it. But it's going to remain in here for about 2 days. And as you can see right about here, we're pulling it out. I'm going to pressure wash it again, and then it should be ready for acid. So as you can see, this paint is pretty stubborn. Since I've been doing this a while, I can tell with certain paints how they're going to react. And some paints like this, usually dull colors or oxide primers, end up being taken off in the acid. So this is actually going into our acid bath right now. Still a little bit of paint on it, but I believe the acid will take it off. Once we dip it so many times in the alkaline and it's not touching the paint, we try the acid out. So it's going to remain in the acid for a few days, probably about 2. I can't remember quite when we put it in here. Sometimes we leave it in over the weekend. But we're going to pull it out, pressure wash it, and it's probably going to have to go in another time. Rarely ever does a car take one acid bath. And as you can see right here, we're pulling it out a few days later. Since I know this car is going to go in for another acid bath, we're not going to neutralize it this time. I'm just going to pull it straight out, give it a quick washing, and then put it back in the acid. And as you can see here, we got the Camaro going back in the acid bath. This will be its final acid dip. We're gonna pull it out, neutralize it, then pressure wash it. And after it's all said and done and pressure washed, we're going to dip it in our water-based rust inhibitor. So as you can see here, we brought the car back over to our alkaline paint remover. This is what we use to neutralize the acid. It's gonna remain in here for about 10 or 15 minutes. We're gonna pull it out, pressure wash it, and this thing should be finished. Okay, so we're finishing up pressure washing. We're gonna have a quick look at this Camaro and see what it looks like all finished up. The shop was super noisy, so I had to do a voiceover on this one. Sorry about that. So we're gonna start here on the firewall. And as you can see, it looks absolutely perfect. No real pitting or anything. Up on the dash, we do have some pitting. Not a big deal though. This metal did finish up super nicely though, as you can see. There's really not a lot to go over on this car because there's not really any rust holes or damage anywhere. The floors pretty much look immaculate. There are a few little rust spots coming through, as you can see in the corner there. Some heavy pitting and it rotted through a little bit. Roof looks really good. As you can see, the welds on those pillar seams, I imagine there was lead there and they ground that out. You can see where that little panel was replaced, all those welds going across. I don't know what that part would specifically be called. Have a look in the trunk area. This is where most of the pitting was, but again, it's not too bad. We do have a few pinholes coming through, but nothing too crazy. Have a look at the back end. Finished up real nice. We do have that dent on the quarter panel on the passenger side, but everything else looks really straight. We'll have a look at the floor from this side. You see we have a few more rust holes coming through on same as the opposing side, basically the same rot coming through. But this thing finished up super nice. I really hope you all enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making it for you, and I will see you at the next car.